Hey guys, so this is gonna be a follow-up video to the update that had dropped recently for Space Marine, and I'm just gonna be talking about the nerf to fencing and how, in my particular experience and my personal preference, I don't think that fencing nerf was a big deal, if at all. I honestly can't tell the difference between fencing and balance weapons at this point because I'm so used to it. I'm just going to be showing gameplay and then giving my 2 cents on it from time to time. But just watch this clip here. Just pay attention to the blocking. The hammer I'm using actually is a fencing hammer. So just pay attention to this whole clip.
Take flight and let terror fall. I may occasionally sound like a champion, but I follow our primer, same as you. The battle is close enough. That pitiful Xenos was but a horrible fight. Avenging angels. I am the righteous storm.
So as you can see, it's not too bad. I really wanted to fight the Carnifex a little more just to really see if fighting a boss will affect the pairing at all, but I honestly don't think it's going to see any kind of difference at all because I couldn't really pay attention to the Carnifex. As you saw, we had a whole bunch of warriors and my two teammates were preoccupied fighting the Carnifex while I took out all the Nid warriors, but it was a good example to showcase the aspect of the fencing. And again, they said that with this update, the perfect parry window is only about half of what it used to be with fencing weapons. And as you can see here, fencing hammer, and I'll quickly show a clip of the hammer that I'm using, which is a fencing hammer. And obviously, fencing or balance weapons are basically the preferred way to play against hordes, unless you really like to use full-on damage builds. Then yeah, go ahead and use a block weapon. Just remember that with block weapons, you no longer have the ability to perfect parry. They actually take away the perfect parry, so all you can do is block. But always remember that if you try and block with a block weapon, either a light or a heavy attack, you're going to get staggered from it. And no matter where your window is from the time that you start the block to the end of the block, it's not going to be a perfect parry. So always remember that. Always remember you're going to be staggered from it. You take the block weapon with the idea that you want to maximize your damage potential. Otherwise, stick to balance and fencing weapons. They honestly they both feel exactly the same, except for some minor differences in cleaving potential and your speed.
Return to the console operation. Connection to all controls established.
Now, I probably would have said something about fencing weapons if the nerf to their perfect parry window felt more like trying to land a perfect dodge. Now, in my experience, again, I play a lot of melee, or I'm very centered around melee builds, so obviously, assault is my main. I should be dodging more often than I should, but really, I only really save the dodging for the Carnifex or the Hive Tyrant, because with them, if you can land that perfect dodge, and you saw just a few seconds ago, I perfect dodged a Nid Warrior and I was up for a gun strike. those feel way harder to land than a perfect parry, and that's without using a fencing weapon. With a balanced weapon, and maybe let me rephrase that. Balanced weapons and fencing weapons feel exactly the same. The only difference is with the fencing weapons you get more speed, so you get to attack quicker, which means you'll be able to cancel out your attacks a little bit quicker, allow you to quickly get into a defensive state or block. So it's easier that way to actually, if anything, it actually is easier to block enemies' attacks when you're using a fencing weapon. A lot of times I would use fencing weapons just for that aspect of it, not for landing easier perfect parries, just because how acclimated I am to using melee classes, that I don't have to worry about timing my parries that's that specific. So when I say that people are exaggerating this update about the nerf to fencing weapons, I actually really do mean they are really exaggerating it. If you use balanced weapons more often than fencing weapons, you are not going to see a difference between the balancing and the fencing perfect parry windows. But the one thing that you will notice is obviously if you use a block weapon. With block weapons, they don't have perfect parries. You can only block, but even when you block, you're always going to get staggered from any attack. Any and all attacks, regardless if they're light or heavy or undodgeable. If you block it, you're going to get staggered by it. That's why block weapons are pretty bad, but you get the trade-off in a lot more damage and cleaving potential. So there is nothing really bad to say about it. It feels like the same. Again, if the perfect dodge had that same small window as perfect parrying, then yeah, I would have said something about it. But perfect dodging is still harder to do than perfect parrying. Perfect parrying it's as easy as breathing. And then the other change that they did to PvE as far as mechanics goes is the melt-a-charge, or the melt-a-bomb as it's known in the game. I haven't noticed a difference in its lethality towards enemies. I always drop it and detonate it right when a horde comes over. It's still taking out, obviously it's still taking out all the Minoris enemies. It still one-shots Majoris enemies. It does do a heavy amount of damage towards extremist enemies, if not one-shotting them. I think it still one-shots the Lictors and 2 shots of Ravener. So it's still pretty good. I don't have really much else to say about it. I was actually kind of hoping that the nerf to the Melt-a-Charge was more focused towards PvP because of the cheese that players will do with the Assault class. And I've been hit by it a few times, and yeah, I don't really like the cheese, but it is what it is. PvP really doesn't take itself seriously, so I can't really complain. Otherwise, all in all, this video really was just about the fencing and how people are mostly ticked off about that specific portion of the update. But again, fencing and balancing weapons feel exactly the same. Just with fencing weapons, if you just want more attack speed, definitely go for a fencing weapon. I never used fencing weapons for a higher perfect parry or for better perfect parrying chances. Besides, with the Vanguard class in particular has a perk that increases its perfect parry window by 50%. So Vanguard in particular should not be feeling this nerf at all. If anyone out there is actually feeling the effects of the fencing nerf and they're a Vanguard maid, they shouldn't be feeling that at all when they have that perk. I know that I don't really much care about using a fencing or balancing weapon. I just use a melee weapon for Vanguard just because it's there. Otherwise, I mostly use its primary and secondary weapons. But I think that about covers it for this video. I don't think I have anything else to talk about. I just wanted to quickly put in my 2 cents and show some gameplay footage of me in particular not having any kind of issues with fencing weapons. But again, like I said many times, I'm mostly focused on melee, so assault obviously is my main. Maybe the fencing will change with Bulwark. I might give Bulwark a try and see if the fencing is different, just because with Bulwark they have a different way of parrying, and because of their shield, so you got to tap it to parry, hold it to block with your shield. Maybe the parry window changes with Bulwark. Who knows? I'll have to give it a try and see if anything changes. I doubt it will. I'm not struggling with extremist enemies, not Majoris enemies, obviously. And with Terminus level enemies like the Carnifex, I don't think we really have to really bother at all. So again, people are just taking it a little bit out of proportion, over exaggerating. I don't think it's right to compare this update to Helldivers. Helldivers had a lot of too many nerfs actually to it, with its power fantasy scaling and taking everything back, and then they quickly reverted everything. Here, I honestly don't think Saber Interactive has to revert the nerf to fencing weapons. You really shouldn't be feeling those effects at all. If you're really struggling with perfect parrying and you've been playing the game for a while now, maybe that's more of a skill issue then. But until then, I'll see you guys around.